Hi, everybody. This is Gina Cavalier at the Liberated Healer podcast. And today we have Stephen Washington on. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to meet you, Gina. Great to be
Nice to
here.
meet you. So you have a book that came out at the end of the year last year, Recovering You, um, Soul Care and Mindful Movement for Overcoming Addiction. And I've had a personal journey with this book and really excited to speak with you today. So thank you for being here again.
Yeah, thanks for
Um,
having me. I can't wait to hear your journey with the book.
well, as always, it's a lot of times what I need is brought to me and I share it with other people. And I didn't really realize that when I was starting the podcast. But that's always seems to be the way that it happens, and it helps with a deeper healing. And then I can express how it affected me and helped me as well. But I wanted to talk a little bit, give people a little bit more context about you and where you came from and your background and kind of how you came to this book.
Yes, 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 yes. So I'm, my name, Stephen Washington. I'm 51 years old. I'm from the East Coast originally. Grew up in Connecticut. Had a very challenging upbringing. A lot of trauma in my family. A lot of chaos, which is really challenging for a sensitive kid like myself.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly looking for ways to self-soothe and self-regulate, and one of the things that helped me when I was a child was to dance, was to move my body,
Yeah.
and that brought me a lot of peace amongst the chaos. And but it wasn't everything. And one of the things that happened for me once I became a teenager, um, and I had my own challenges, and setting aside what my parents went through, my own challenges. One of the things um, that I felt I needed to do was to escape in some way. And one of the ways that I learned how to escape was to drink. At 15, I had my first drink of alcohol when I was studying abroad with my dance school that I was a part of. And that changed my life because I suddenly felt like I was a part of instead of apart from. I felt like I could breathe. And prior to that, I felt like I'd been living my life holding my breath.
Mm.
I felt like I was worthy. I felt like I was smart. All those things. I felt like I was sexy, which is important for a a teenager with like raging hormones, and coming to my own sense of myself and understanding that I was gay and all those things. So that feeling that I got from my first drunk was something that I chased for the next 20 years or so in my drinking and my using. I became a professional dancer in New York, and studied there, and eventually made my way to Broadway and was a part of Disney's The Lion King. And for a long time, I drank and I did drugs and I did all those things to get outside of myself. And I did it without much consequence.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean,
Keep
certainly
up
there are
that
things.
rhythm of dancing and drinking. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, I just came from strong stock, healthy
Yeah.
stock. I was able to endure all of that. Um, and my drinking and drugging history was not all bad. There was some fun and all that, but there were also challenges. I will never forget the time that I was drinking one night with some friends, and I was with my friend and I was talking to him. And as I was talking to him, I suddenly lost my sight. I couldn't see, literally lost my ability to see. And to a normal person, that would be enough to make one stop doing whatever they were doing. But that didn't stop me. I kept going. Or the time I was in the middle of a vocal lesson with my teacher at the time. Her name was Donna. She used to be an opera singer, a little itty bitty woman with bleach blonde hair. She probably weighed about 2 pounds. She in the middle of my vocal lesson with her, I had a spontaneous nosebleed because of all the cocaine I'd been doing, and I
Oh,
ran to the bathroom to clean myself up, hoping that she didn't notice. But I was mortified, and that, for a person who is conscious and aware, might be enough to make them stop and question and wonder why why but I was just too busy trying to self-medicate myself to ever take the time to really be introspective in that way, and get to the bottom of this deep level of dis-ease within me that made me go outside of myself to seek some sort of comfort, some sort of normalcy. And I carried on like that for years until I finally had enough. I woke up the last time feeling like I wanted to die,
Yeah.
feeling like I was disappointed that I woke up and took another breath. I had mornings like that, and I
Mm.
just had one too many of those. And then finally, I was willing to reach out to a friend of mine who was in recovery, who offered me a life vest to
Oh,
save myself. And I began my 12-step journey with him. And it's been 20 years. And what I've learned along those 20 years is that all of that work and all the things that I did to rebuild my life were really important, but it didn't fix me. It didn't
mhm.
cover everything. It didn't tend to all of my needs. About 10 years sober, I decided to take a big step and go back to school because I'd seen many people in recovery do big things like that. They got their shit together and they decided to go and get themselves to try things that they'd always wanted to try, never had the courage to, didn't have the wherewithal to. So I wanted to do that. I thought I wanted to be a Chinese medicine doctor. And I moved from New York to California to do that, to pursue that, only to discover that that's not what I wanted to do.
Mm.
And I came from somewhere. I got the message very young that if you start something, you got to finish it, that you can't change your mind.
Yeah.
And that's just such a limiting way of living your life.
Yeah.
So I entered that situation and I felt a tremendous amount of anxiety and panic and fear and worry. I would have panic attacks before classes. I would stay up all night trying to study and not being able to absorb the information, and just would just not be able to sleep, and terrible, terrible, terrible period. And one of the things that helped me during that time was Qigong. Qigong was part of the curriculum. And what happened before class was so different from what would happen once I walked into that classroom and listened to the lecture, and then began to have the physical experience of the medicine of Qigong. And it transformed me. Now, it got me to a place where I was able to zoom out from the situation that I was in and see the bigger picture
Yeah.
and just trust the process. And it allowed me to let go of some of the shame I was feeling and some of the worry and fear, and just be able to be with it, to be with myself and to be with that experience, and just know that I was going to be all right.
Mm.
No matter what I decided to do, I was going to be okay. And that the most important thing was A, that I stayed sober, because I didn't know if I was going to stay sober during that experience.
Yeah.
And that I do everything I could to stay sane, because I thought I was losing my mind during that period. So it's an incredible healing. And what I realized during that time was that Qigong was something that was going to be able to help me through my life and my recovery, enhance it, and it'd be something I could teach other people and share with other people. So that set me on the mission that
Yeah.
eventually led me to becoming a Qigong teacher, and putting my work out online, and eventually creating online courses, and eventually creating the course that Recovering You was based on,
Yes.
and then leading me to this moment here of being with you, Gina, to talk
Wonderful.
about my experience, strength, and hope.
And it kind of seems almost like a natural progression, but I guess it wasn't until you found it, because of the body knowledge and the understanding of the movement of the body. You already had all of that and the love of the how the body functions in that kind of a way, but now slowing it down through Pilates and Qigong, and I was doing it on the mountaintop. I was with your book the other day, yeah, just yesterday, and I'm also a high functioning person, a very empathic person, and I've had a lot of my struggles because of the empathy and things like that. And just sitting there, and the slow movement just feels really right, with especially with the earth under your feet like that. And I look up and I just see this giant deer, like not too far from me, just
Mm,
quietly watching me. And so I said, oh, I'm just gonna keep going. And my dogs were around and everything. She wasn't afraid at all. And it really did just feel like a moment between us, just slowing down, enjoying the space we were in. It was
mm.
really beautiful.
You were dancing with nature.
Yeah. And I was using the methods in the book and I really love it. I was always curious about Qigong and this is the first time I've done it. So
Mhm.
I found it very peaceful and wonderful. And then the next note is that I went down to a coffee shop and I was meeting with another healer that I'm working on a project with, Leah Lamb. And we're just sitting there and this older man comes up to me. I have your book um, on the um, on the table, just sitting there. And this older man comes up to me and he goes right to your book and he goes, "I'm sorry to disturb you. Can I see that book?" And
Mhm.
I was like, "Yeah." And he picked it up. He's like, "I got to write this down. I got to have this book just from the cover." And then I said, "Well, what's your name?" He said, "Lorenzo." And I said, "Lorenzo, hi, nice to meet you." And then he goes, "I'm a dancer too." But it doesn't have dancer on here at all. And then I said, "How did you know he was a dancer?" He said, "Oh, I didn't say that." And then me and the other woman said, "Yes, you did."
Huh.
And so I just felt it was like like and spiritual too, though, and connected. Like like that's calling the tribe together and the collective working in a very deep way. So I just wanted
Mhm.
to share that because her and I were just looking at each other like, what? I mean, I literally just had it on the table.
That's spirit. That's
Call,
spirit working, calling, working. Yeah.
yeah, he needs something in here, is something he needs. So I wanted to share with you because as a writer, I know the journey, and when you're doing the writing, sometimes you don't know how it's going to really do the ripple effect and how powerful it's going to be.
So true. So true. When I was writing the book, yeah, I didn't know when I started writing the book, I didn't know what it was going to be like in each step of that process. And I didn't know what it was going to be like once it was out in the world. I just knew I was going through a transformation
Mhm.
at that time. And I'm still, though, the transformation is still taking place within me. Just like you're all having your journey with the book is workshopping me.
Yeah.
Even months after it's been a year after it's been written. And it was such an incredible journey because we all have those little parts of ourselves that are critical, that judge, that tell us, "Oh, you're doing this right," or "Oh, you're doing this wrong," or what have you. And I remember having those little conversations with myself while I was writing the book, and I would stop in the middle of like a mid sentence and tell that part of myself that was critical that, "Thanks for your opinion, but I got a book to write. I don't have time for this." And I
Mm.
just was like, "Thanks for sharing," and just keep moving on, which was great because it helped me to challenge that part of me that would say, "Who do you think you are that you could write a book like this? Why is your experience so important that you need to share it in this way?" All those things, and I just had that deep knowing that one of the ways that we heal ourselves and is by sharing it with others,
Yeah.
and that helps other people on their healing journey as well. We don't learn and grow by just keeping all this stuff inside.
I actually
And
think that secondary subconscious voice comes a little bit later through a
mhm,
lot of work. And when you do get that, it's great because it's like that, always say, you're going back in too far in the past. You've already healed that. Today's a new day. Or you start to have these conversations with yourself and
yeah,
it pulls you out.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I really, I kind of want to focus a little bit on the addiction part because
Mm,
I come from a lot of people with addiction. I'm actually writing a book called The Reeducation of Suicide with a trauma doctor, where we're trying to help people who are suffering. And addiction is such a giant, giant part of people that commit suicide.
yeah,
And so you have like a recovery story, and I read in your book something that made it really easy for me too is chronic disease of the brain is a reward and motivation circuitry system,
mhm,
that's really hard to break. And
mhm,
that sort of made sense to me because about how you're constantly being rewarded,
mhm,
and then the codependency on that, and then having, like you were saying, to go, I'm going to have to deal with this at some point. And then that fear, right? Like, oh, going through that is just going to really ruin my relation, like tear apart my career. Like there's so much fear.
Mhm.
So where do you start when you're dealing with such a big topic, kind of correlating to some of this?
Wow, that's a big question.
I know, but
Thank
that's
you. Yeah, but thank you, but let me just say that I'm so glad that you're doing the that you're working on what you're working on with this trauma doctor and tackling the issue of suicide
Thank
and
you.
addiction, because that is it's big, but it's so important, and we
Yeah.
have to start talking about that more. And I love that you mentioned trauma, because I think that one of the reasons why I turned to drugs and alcohol and cigarettes is because I was trying to deal with unhealed trauma.
Mhm.
And even in recovery after 20 years of sobriety, I'm still moving through that process, getting
Mhm.
to another level of healing and peeling back the layers of the onion and discovery and cultivating new coping mechanisms and tools. Thank goodness for all the tools that I've used and have helped me get to this point, but a lot of them are outdated and I have to let them go. And so that's just something that we all experience in our own way. But I definitely think that I self-medicated for a long time to deal with trauma. And one of the reasons why I wrote this book is because a lot of the ways that we try to heal from addiction, whether it's 12 steps or other um, group support systems, a lot of them deal with the emotions or the mind, but very few actually deal with the body. And
Mm,
like Bessel van der Kolk says in his book, "The Body Keeps the Score," trauma settles in the body. It affects the body. It affects us physiologically. It affects our minds. It affects our brains, and there's no way to heal it until we start to address it on those different levels. And so I wanted to do my part, which is just to share the language of the body, because I feel like it's a language that I've always been fluent in, and I wanted to share that with others so that they can get in touch with how they're feeling, check in, because so often we do so much to get outside of ourselves and check out, and this
mm,
is an invitation to check in. And in the book, movement always comes at the end of each chapter, at the end of each discussion, so that we can take all those ideas that we discuss in the chapter and integrate it into the body.
mm.
So movement has been a big part of my healing journey, and I hope to be moving for the rest of my life. And I think that it's helped me heal it's helped me heal on so many different levels, and addiction is just one of them. And and I just feel as though in order to, because it's one thing to stop doing something, like I'm going to stop drinking, or I'm going to stop doing drugs, or I'm going to stop smoking, or I'm going to stop my disordered eating, or I'm going to stop overworking, or I'm going to stop doing this or that. But what are you going to add to your life to fill those gaps,
Mm.
to fill that God-sized hole that's inside of you, to really heal those tender parts of yourself? And so I wanted to provide
God-sized
practices like
hole.
that. Hmm.
It is a God-sized hole.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Um,
this is one opportunity, one way. There could be other ways, but whatever it is, you got to seek that, like you said, and have the backup, because all that, and it's all going to rise up. All that triggers, all the temptation is going to rise up. What are you going to turn to?
yeah, yeah. And I think for a lot of people, it's just a matter of like, this thing is killing me, I have to stop doing it, but not really thinking about what you need to add to your life to fill those spaces and to help you self-soothe and help you self-regulate and help you care for those parts of yourself that you've left behind a long time ago.
Yeah,
And even though you left them behind, um, they're not, they haven't evaporated, they haven't fully disappeared. We can still rediscover them. We can still recover those parts of ourselves that are really intrinsic to who we are
yeah.
and part of our healing journey.
It's like there's all these little wounds, and then you can start to fill those spaces once you start to fill them with something else.
Mhm.
And And I do think that the way that you're a professional dancer, so you understand how the body moves, and um, you know, it's a good, like, I also like the Pilates, and I love the laughter. The laugh. I did the laughter one yesterday, and I was doing it. My dogs are just looking at me like, "What's so funny?" And I'm just, and it's so contagious.
It is. It is. I love that you mentioned the laughter because I think it's when you're going through when you're experiencing this healing journey, it's important to keep a sense of humor about it. I mean, it's serious business what we're trying to do, the
Yeah,
healing, but it's important to not take it all so seriously that you lose your ability to experience joy or laughter or any kind of levity. And one of the things that I love about just sharing laughter medicine with people is because you can tell a lot about where you are in your life by your ability or inability to laugh.
yeah,
I teach people, and oftentimes they'll say to me, I had a really hard time with the laughter. I couldn't really get myself to laugh. And I always tell them, it's okay. It's okay. Just use this as an opportunity to learn something about yourself. Maybe you didn't know before this moment that you had this difficulty tapping into that joy. And if you can't get yourself to laugh, then lift the corners of your mouth and just smile and start with that because there's so many benefits that you get from just smiling
yeah.
and just work from there. That's really important stuff.
Well, I was trained at a psychic school because I was highly psychic and I was going crazy. I didn't know how to deal with all the clairvoyance and clairaudience I had. But
Mm,
when dealing with a really dark subject matter, we had a thing called ha ha ha.
mhm.
And sometimes we're dealing with something really dark, and there are some people who are like, I don't want to deal with that, and then we're like, well, just say ha, and they go ha 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 ha, and then eventually they couldn't help it, like you said, the corners, because it just felt so ridiculous. And
Yes.
it would break the energy, especially if we were dealing with something like a block,
Mhm.
so the ha 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 ha, even if you have to ha 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 your way
Yeah, fake it
through.
till you make it. Act as
um,
if. Mhm.
And then after you do some healing, and I know you have a lot of working with gratitude too. It's like, can you explain how you've incorporated that?
Yeah, I think gratitude is something that's really important in any kind of healing or recovery journey.
Yeah.
It's so easy to focus on what's wrong in life, what's not right, what's not working, how things don't meet your expectations, what have you. And the more that we focus on that, it has a really negative impact on your body, mind, and your spirit. I mean, just spend 15 minutes thinking about all the things that you don't have and just notice how you feel. And then turning it around and noticing all the things that you do have that you could be grateful for. And no matter how difficult of a circumstance that we're in, there's always something that we can be grateful for.
Yeah.
And I know that that's also a practice that can be very challenging for people, especially if they're in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
They're in a lot of pain and they're in that they're in the they're in the heavy part of their healing journey. Um, so you start simple. You start by just being grateful that you can breathe,
Yeah.
that you can take a breath in and out, and that there is air available to you and your body can process it. Start with that and then grow from there. And the more we focus on what's right and what we have to be grateful for that's positive in our lives, the more that will grow.
And it
And
takes practice.
it does take practice, absolutely, like, really thinking about it every day. Every day. Can you come up with 3 things that you're grateful for every day? Start with that, and before you know it, over a period of time, you'll even be able to think of maybe 5 things, 10 things, 20 things. If I sit down, I can come up with a countless number of things that I'm grateful for today, and it changes how you feel. Like it literally has a physiological effect on you when you do that, when you allow your mind to focus on those things, and that benefits our physical health as well as our emotional health and mental health.
And I mean, anything great. I mean, you were able to achieve dance success. I mean, you did that through practice. And then you had to say, well, can you do this for yourself?
Mhm.
Can you turn around and put that much love and passion into the whole you, and right?
Mm, mhm, mhm.
And you probably had that challenge with yourself too, as in, you gave that 100%. Are you going to give yourself 100%?
Yeah, it's definitely a different way of looking at your life and your experience, and really just shifting your gaze from one thing to the other. And can you take all of that energy that you may have used to focus outward and really turn it around and just focus inward,
Yeah.
focus on I've just had the vision of a garden, that we have a
Mhm.
garden inside of us, and the garden can only survive with water and sunlight
Mhm.
and TLC. And can you turn that inward and allow the garden within you to grow?
Oh, I love the garden.
Mhm.
And I think it's really, honestly, I'm not here to, to sell your, subscription stuff, but they're very affordable. They're $22 a month, and I think that that's really affordable, and that's really helpful too. And the studio is
SWE Studio,
wonderful.
yes, yes, yeah.
And the studio is wonderful, and you have the fusion, and you have the Qigong, and it's available 24/7. And you do have such a quiet mindset, and a calming, and uh, even as teachers, we need teachers. It's like we're
Mhm.
all teachers, we're all students at the same time, constantly.
Yes.
We never give up one or the other. If we're in a balance, we're got somebody we're teaching something, and somebody we're learning from.
Yeah, and I always think that I'm always how can I say this? What I'm sharing with the world is what I need to learn and practice most myself. That's what's gotten me to this moment. This
Mm.
medicine is as important for my body, mind, and spirit as it will be for any one of you. And thank you for bringing up SWE Studio. I wanted to create a community that is affordable and accessible, and teaches people self-care tools that they could use to help them live a more conscious and joyous life. And I think of all the practices in the book as a great foundation for
Mhm.
self-care, and then SWE Studio is something that allows us to take that even further. As people in recovery, it's so important to practice self-care because there's so many things that we've done to ourselves and neglected our self-care on so many different levels. So it's important to get back to the body and the mind and the spirit and care for it. But it's important for all of us. I
Yeah.
think of this work, even this book, as something that could benefit each and every one of us, because we all know someone, we all love someone who is dealing with addiction.
Yeah, there's lots of different kinds of addiction.
Exactly, exactly. And that those people, everyone needs support. Everyone needs self-care practices. Everyone needs opportunities to understand one another more. Your loved one who is struggling with an addiction, there might be aspects of their experience that you don't understand, and maybe it's because it's too close to you. But reading my story, and also the stories of my friends who I brought in to lend their voices to this recovery conversation, you might identify with one of their stories or parts of their story that may help you understand your loved one even more, and how that's going to enrich your relationship, and heal yourself and help them heal. And yeah, there's so much to be had in this work, and I just wanted so desperately to share it with the world.
And that's why, going back to that, it's the reward system in the brain. So when you're dealing with somebody who has it, that's why it's so important until they've reached their decision that they're done with that, living that. But you're dealing with somebody who is this is not just a conscious choice anymore. It's
It's not about
integrated.
willpower.
Yeah, it's integrated. I mean, in their whole brain, their whole body, everything that they are. It's circuitry all built that way at this point,
Yeah.
and they're the one that has to flip the switch.
Mhm, mhm.
So, because it is harder, it's hard for the other people as well. It's like, how come my boyfriend or girlfriend does this and that, and it's hard to understand that they're suffering and trying to get through it. And this is one of the items that can go into the toolbox for healing
Mhm.
when you guys decide that it's time to kind of do that. And so, you also talk about supporting a network, getting a network or a collective of people that are supporting you. Do you have any suggestions on, how to do that in a safe way, or how important that is in a part of this journey?
It's really important. It's one of the reasons why I started off the book talking about isolation.
Mm,
Isolation is a really big part of addiction, and we isolate for many different reasons. And so it's hard. It's hard to step out of yourself and reach out to others and try to get help. And I think one of the things that keeps us from doing that, and I just recently made a video about this, is pride and shame. Pride and shame can keep help at arm's length or longer away from us. And I think in order to heal oneself, we need help. We need support. We can't do it all by ourselves. I think if we were able to do it all by ourselves, we probably would have done it already.
yeah.
So it's important to reach out because there are people out there who are more than willing to help. I think
Yes.
it's important to practice discernment when you are seeking help,
Hmm.
knowing that where you're going to get help, that you'll be able to get it. Don't go to the hardware store looking to find produce. No, go to some place or some person who can give you the help that you need. And you might not get it right each time, but what's more important is that you keep trying, and that more often than not you get it right, and you reach people who are going to reach back and help you. A big part of my social support network at the beginning, and still is today, is recovery meetings.
Mm,
And it's something that you can find out in the world that's live, and you can be in a room filled with people, or you can do it all online and still connect with people and listen to them share their experience, strength, and hope, and hopefully find some level of identification, just so that you know that you're not alone. And that's
yeah.
something I really tried to create in the pages of the book. But it's really important that we are connected, because connection gives us a sense of belonging. And
It's who
addiction
we
makes
are
us
as
feel
a
like
human.
yeah, and addiction makes us feel like we don't belong to anyone or anything. So it's important that we build those bridges, and we just start one little step at a time, one little step
Yeah.
at a time.
I so appreciate you and your collective, and your husband Lee Harris is somebody that I've been following and listening to for a really long time. Even in my channels, my guides have directed me to his content, and Matt Kahn, and people that I didn't know until they told me about them. So I really feel like we're all a part of this really interconnected, authentic, very loving and kind group. And I'm just so grateful for how you guys are, what you're putting out in the world, even as a partnership and a couple.
Mm.
And it's beautiful, and it's inspiring,
Thank you.
you
Thank you.
know, to be able to find mutual benefit people that are in that same space, is really lovely. Is there anything you would like to take us out with today? Kind of the Stephen Washington experience.
Uh, no, I hope that people walk away from this conversation that you and I are having, and thank you again for this beautiful conversation. I hope that everyone walks away with the knowledge that they're not alone.
Mm,
Also walks away with a belief that they are worthy of change, transformation, recovery, and that there are tools that are available to them, and they have to be willing to go outside of themselves to get them, that can help them live a more conscious and joyous life. Not a perfect life, but a more conscious, joyous, and perfectly imperfect life.
perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for your time today. I'm going to link everything below so you can find SW Studio, Stephen Washington Experience, and everything about the book. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Gina. So lovely to meet you. You're just
You.
delightful.
Oh, thank you. This has been the Liberated Healer. Thank you again today. Bye.